I have just played for you Bach's Sinfonia number 10 in G major. Bach wrote 15 sinfonias. They're also known as the three-part inventions. With three voices to work with, these become musically and technically more challenging than the two-part inventions. In this Sinfonia, this lively and mirthful piece, Bach has taken a two-measure subject, given it to all three voices in the beginning as usual, and then he refers to that subject and fragments of the subject throughout the piece. What I love about this piece is for half of it, we have weaving around the subject material for one hand a counterpoint of two voices. It's a rocking dialogue between the remaining two voices, but it's almost always played with just one hand. And this now becomes extremely challenging. It's really brilliant writing. And I'd like to point out that in Bach's preface to the Inventions and Sinfonias, he says one of the goals is to learn how to play cleanly and well in two voices for the two-part inventions, and then to move on to the three-part inventions. So he's building progressive steps of teaching here. And this one is loaded with things that I really haven't seen in any of his other inventions or sinfonias. He gives equal treatment for all three voices, giving them turns at the subject and then participating in that rocking counterpoint dialogue in the most extraordinary ways. So how does he do this? Well, the first thing we need to look at is the subject. And in the key of G major, here is your chord, here is your scale, here is your tonic G, and the 5 fingers going up, scale degrees, D being the dominant. It's in 3/4 time, and it starts on a syncopation. There's syncopations everywhere in this piece. With the soprano, on the and of 1, this is how the full two-measure subject sounds. And I will count out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. That's your full subject. Now I broke this down into 2 parts. I call part A the measure 1, where we have the ascending scale, and then it drops down a 3rd and up a 4th, and on that E, which is the downbeat of measure 2, begins the descending scale, which I call part B. And then this powerful upward 7th. So in your part B, you are always going to hear that upward 7th on the 3rd beat, and then it ends with what I call the tail. These last, and analyzing it this way because I found those to be ideas that Bach chose to develop throughout the piece. So I needed to give them labels so we could say, oh yes, here he's using the subject part B. Here he's using the tail. In measure 3 now, also on the syncopation, the next voice, the alto, comes in. But it doesn't come in on the tonic. It comes in on the dominant, the D. And it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. But it isn't played like that. It's played with 2 hands. And that's the first thing we need to know about these 3-part inventions, these sinfonias. Generally, the soprano is played with the right hand. The bass is played with the left hand, like we have in the 2-part inventions, but the alto, or it could be tenor, I'm calling it alto, is always played between the 2 hands. So it's never a straightforward passage that's all under the hands. And this is what we have to do in measure 3. We have to take the right hand with the offbeat 1 and then we switch to the left hand for 3 notes, and then back to the right hand for the beat 3, and the next measure, now back to the left hand, and up to the right hand for that upward 7th. Complicated. And then right after that, in measure 5, the soprano doesn't wait. As a syncopation, it jumps right in on the downbeat D and does another entry. Now, when it's on the dominant in fugue writing, I'll just back up a little bit here. Bach is basing this exposition, which is the opening material where all the voices get their statement subject entries. We start in a fugue on the tonic for the first subject and then go to the dominant for the next voice, and that's called the answer. And then generally the subject comes back again on the tonic, and if there's a fourth voice, it's again the dominant answer. But in this piece, Bach does the 3rd entry as a double answer on the D again. So we've had our alto in measure 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And here's the soprano again, D answer, but it's altered. Same until here. And at that point, guess what? The bass comes in on the tonic, syncopated like this. This is measure 7. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. And that, if it ended, would be that. But guess what Bach does here? He is taking the part B, which is the descending material of measure 2, and repeating it again now a step lower. From the E now down to the D. And the next measure a step lower, starting on the C. And ending on the E. Now we know something's going on here. And what this passage is called a sequence. And the sequence is a compositional form where the material repeats down stepwise or up stepwise, and almost always serves as a modulation to a new key. And it is in this point. We'll find out very soon what key we've modulated to. Now what I'd like to do here is to play from measure 1 to where I just stopped now, which is measure 11, the left hand alone, because it starts with the bass part of counterpoint of these punctuated quarter notes. was the alto part coming here. So when you learn this piece, it's two things are going to be essential. One, playing the hands alone and tracking which voice is playing what, which I just did now. And the other thing is to play through just that voice, like I did here for measure 3 for the alto. So you're crystal clear where these voices are. They're all different, and each one is a standalone part. That's playing cleanly and well in 3 parts. Now going on this measure 5 with just the left hand, we have the bass here, and right away it goes up to the next 16th note with the alto part. Now this measure 7, here is the entry for the bass. All subject beat. Okay, now let's take the right hand alone. Those same things. Measure 1, starting soprano. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2. You see how different that sounds when I have to play the alto part below? There's the alto, and now a little counterpoint here. For the soprano, hold, hold. Now measure 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Measure. Now this is tricky. And this is the beginning of this fabulous dialogue. In the first part of the piece, it's for the soprano and the alto. So what I'm going to do is to play this first as written here. Measure 8. But the best way to hear that, the two voices, is to take redistribution, take the soprano for the right hand and the alto for the left, pull it apart an octave, and this is now what you have. And you can hear that the alto, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all on little syncopations built on the tail. And the soprano, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you put it together, feel this rocking back and forth. The third beat is what I focus on here. 1, 2, 3, da da da, 1, 2, soprano, and then alto. 1, 2, soprano, alto. I put it together now as written to sustain that alto that's holding as a half note and type. I have to do something very difficult here. I have to play with the 2 of the right hand, because the bottom part of my hand is for the alto and the upper part is for the soprano. I'm splitting my hand basically in 2. I have to kick off and reach up to the soprano F sharp on beat 3, and then now hold this thumb of the alto, kick off here, come down, hold that one again, hold this one, kick off here, and up the tempo. That's the to articulate this with these staccatos so that you can hear the two voices clearly. And when we put that all together here, we have this fabulous, slowly, now we have these beautiful parallel tints for the tail. Next measure. More parallel tints. More parallel tints. So that becomes very beautiful. Put the whole thing together now. Measure 1 through 10, which I just played here. And I'll call out the subject entries. Soprano, alto, soprano answer, and bass subject, sequence. And we have modulated to E minor. And the last thing we have is 2 more subject statements. First in the alto, which goes like this in measure 11. Altered and altered. And then in measure 13, the soprano comes on A minor. Another subject entry. Altered and shifted here. The bass here in measure 11 so that is strict counterpoint. There isn't anything in here except to accompany the alto subjects, alto in measure 11 and 12, and the soprano in measure 13 and 14. I'm putting that all together here. Measure 11, this is connecting material. 4 measures of connecting material, starting on a new key area of E minor, which is the relative minor of our home key, G major. Bach has finished with his 3 subject entries, and now he's beginning to develop the material a little bit and push the boundaries a little bit with these subjects. And even though the subjects have the same amount of 16th notes that would fit measures 1 and 2, the harmonies are altered and the entries are extended a little bit. So it's a seamless passage here. It's very fluid writing at this point. So here is the alto entry. To do now is show you what I am looking at here. This is a brand new engraving. Well, it's brand new for my website. It's not brand new for me. I've been working on this engraving and working on learning the piece for 5 years now, but it's finally come together to make it published. Now what you see here is a different size, 11 inches by 17 inches wide. And you can see how very long this is. I'm able to get 7 measures on one system. That's what I call these systems. System 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now what I did to make this is take public domain music with all exactly the same notes you will find in any other traditional edition, but I have laid them out on this format. This is a one of a kind. This is, because I invented it, and I did this based on what the actual music material is. And I put lots of colors and labels on this, which you do get on this color structural analysis. I'm going to go through and just show you in the chart package, which you can purchase from my website, Sally Christian Music, as digital downloads. Your main file, where you learn your notes, comes in black and white, like this, on 2 pages. That's your entire piece. 4 systems on page 1 and 3 systems on page 2. There's lots of space here. It's very clean and restful for the eyes. I love working from these. And then once you get your notes pretty well learned, one of the things that I really like to do as I'm trying to memorize a piece, I have the next PDF in your chart package is the entire piece on one vertical piece of paper called the satellite view. And I've just taken those 2 pages of the main file and put them all on one with smaller notes. But you can set this on the music rack and refer to it and just see how close you are to having it memorized or not. 7 systems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And here is the color structural analysis. The same 7 systems. And here now you have, up in the upper left-hand corner, the little graph of the theme, the 2-measure theme, showing the intervals and the upward 7th, part A, part B. And extremely important are the color coding for the voices. I assigned pink for the soprano, blue for the alto. Alto, tenor are synonymous in sinfonias. I'm referring it as alto. And bass in the green. So now let's just take a quick look at this. What we have done so far is taken the first 3 systems, and we had our opening subject pink in the soprano here, our alto answer on the dominant here, our soprano answer on an altered subject here, and then our bass entrance here, and our first sequence right here. And then we went to this 3rd system, which was a little bit of connecting material and exploration. You might call that at the beginning of the development section. Now I have one other supply that I made, which I can't wait to share with you here. It is a single PDF. Right here, I happened to take the color structural analysis and this form of the piece, and I mounted them on one board here, just for the lesson. Because this now, when I made this, I got to see how this piece is really put together. It's very, very straightforward. He has on systems 1 and 7 are like the bookends. You've got your subject entries stated in all 3 voices, and you have your close with just a single soprano subject. So consider those bookends anchoring the piece. Now, the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 systems are built only on 2 elements. The sequences, sequence 1, 2, and 3, and the connecting material in between the sequences, which are each 4 measures long and each have 2 altered subject entries. That's what I mean, the subject's everywhere in this piece. Now, let's just linger a little bit longer on this, because here is the power of Bach's equality of writing. He takes in this first sequence the subject in the bass, all played with the left hand. The second sequence, the subject is played in the soprano, all with the right hand. We're about ready to start that part in the piece. And the last sequence is heard in the alto. And as I said earlier in the lesson, the alto voice is always played between the 2 hands, and here it is, played with both hands over here. And you can see here, I don't know if you can follow my protractor, but here's the alto subject sequences, weaving around, right hand, left hand, up to the right, down to the left, up to the right, down to the left, up to the right. Extremely difficult, hard to read. And on either ends is this beautiful counterpoint dialogue, now played with the right hand and the left hand, no longer between the two hands for that counterpoint dialogue. Sequence 3 is the culmination of the entire piece, and he has done some amazing things. I am so thrilled to have gotten to know this piece as well as I know it today. Of course, I will continue to know it better and better. You know, one of the things people ask me is, how long will it take me to learn this piece? Well, this is an advanced piece, and I generally 2 years minimum, but to really know a piece, 5 years, 10 years. And the best thing is to have repeated learning and forgetting, and learn it and forget it. In other words, have a big space of time in between and come back to it. When you've done that about 3 times, then you really can say, I really know this piece. I really do. So don't get discouraged if you think it's going to take forever, if it feels that way. It's all just walking the road one step at a time, and you will get there. And the thing I want to stress is this journey is the joy. The journey of the daily practice is so deeply satisfying to know that every day, yes, I made a little bit of progress today. So when you go to the piano, you only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes that day, busy day. Just take one of your systems. Just work on this. Just work on those 2. Start here now. Let's take this 7 measure system on bottoms of page 1, starting at measure 15, because this is our second sequence. Now I'm first going to take the right hand alone, because this is where the subject part B is repeated again and again and again, going down stepwise. This is easy to follow. So I'm starting with the easier part. Okay, measure 15 with the pickup. Now this kind of blends in as a soprano entry here. Right here. There's a subject. Now repeats again down a step. Up a 7th, down a step to A. Up a 7th, down a step to G. And one final F sharp. What does that sound like to you? Well, that's a 5-finger pattern of B minor. And that's really interesting because we started with that first connecting material of measure 11, 1 E minor, and now here we are, so many measures later, with the dominant of E minor. So that 5th relationship now is playing through. All right, now we're going to take the dialogue, and this time it's between alto and bass. And what I'm going to do this time now is just to play as redistribution, the alto with the right hand and the bass with the left. This is how I recommend you practice this piece. We are acquainting our ears with the 2 different patterns that are hard to distinguish the way Bach has written this because they overlap. You can't really clearly hear which voice is doing what unless you pull it apart an octave. So these are the 2 parts as redistribution. This is the second sequence. Take the first sequence. Except 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, bass, 2, alto, bass. Then, when we put this all together as written for just the left hand, we have the same two things you have to do. You have to make the alto voice, which has the eighth notes. You have to detach those. And then the bass voice that has the half note, you have to hold it with the fourth finger. So let me demonstrate this now. There's my bass with the fourth finger on A. Now, hold it. No. Now that's played cleanly and well. It took me so long to learn how to do this. I could not track it. I could not hold it in my ears. But about 8 months later, doing what I've just shown in the lesson, how to do this redistribution, put it apart an octave. Another great thing to do is to sing one of the voices. Well, I could that's hard to do, but then you really hear it cleanly. Would you like to hear this all together now? I would love to play this for you. And I'm going to start right at the pickup now to this second sequence. I have to say one other thing. On the tails of these third beats, now we have intervals of sixths between the soprano and the bass. So I'm going to bring that out a little bit more than I normally would. It's so gorgeous how he gives these parallel sixths for the second sequence between the dialogue counterpoint. In the first sequence, he gave the other interval of the 10th. And that's going to play profoundly in the third sequence. That's why I'm stressing this now in the lesson as one of the important elements of adding the gorgeous harmonies in this piece. It's a lively piece, but it's also very lyrical. If we hear it and play it that way. Right here. Now, alto entry, subject. Modulated here at the top of page 2 to B minor, without a doubt. And that alto here, is really, you want to learn your notes like this. This is measure 20. Right hand. And then left hand. Up that seventh to the right hand. Let's play that a little faster. One more time, and now listen for the soprano holding. 3, 1, 2. have to hear at all times. See if you can follow now. Here's the bass. And there's a little bit of counterpoint with the soprano for the first beat, and then it just holds. So here we are. And we go on. This is measure 22. And when I play this part of the piece, I know that I am right here. My fifth system to, it's the second of the connecting material. Now this 4-measure system is a little different than the first one. It has a new element, and I find this exquisitely beautiful. Let's first look at the subjects that we have here. They are all for the bass. I'll show you my music here. These are identical marks of color and labels that are on your color structural analysis. This is just, I put them all manually on my black and white main file for the lesson, because I need to see it in the big size notes to give the lesson. I have a lot of other additional markings here. But here we are now with the B minor key area measure 22. This is another sequence. The left hand starts with the bass subject here and then drops down a step and repeats. So let's just play that much. It's another one of those subject entries that are altered. Now this one's altered in a way that none of the others are. The beginning of the piece, we have down a third and up a fourth. Now he's going to go down a fourth and up a second. So he's inverting the fourth, putting it down instead of up. So here, listen to how that sounds in context. Here's the upward seventh. And then repetition now, starting on the A, down a step. A little bit of A minor in here. Sounded like it modulated to G major, didn't it? Let's play the other two parts above that are all played with the right hand. So this is another type of dialogue. So let's take the soprano first by itself, measure 22, so we acquaint ourselves with these individual horizontal lines. See the tenderness in that? We haven't had anything like that yet in the piece, with just those eighth notes making those very tender, arching phrases. And then the alto, starting measure 22. Hold, hold, rest. Hold, hold, hold. Now when we put those together, we get a duet of parallel thirds, which is so exquisite. Right there. Did you hear me sustain that F sharp with my thumb of the alto and the previous G sharp with my thumb? I'm going to play this again now because this is critically important to sustain all the notes of both of the parts here. They must be legato. The cantabile style that Bach refers to in his preface, maybe the most important element is to play in a singing and cantabile style. Cantabile means singing. In order to have this as a singer would sing, or we cannot have any breaks. We can't go You can't have a break there. And now comes the important element of fingering. And I'm going to show you my technique for doing this. Now I'm going to hang on to that G sharp with my thumb of the alto. Now watch this fingering right hand. 5, 4, 3, 4, 3. Now I raise my wrist and pivot down like a pole vault, like that, and I clear the note without letting go of it. This is just the most exciting thing to be able to do this. Perfect legato, and I didn't lose the alto. Let's do it again now. Down a step. Now get this F sharp with the thumb. And reach up. Same thing, up. Now tuck that 4 down. And when I play it up to tempo, you can still watch my hand with this little kind of it's like a wrist pivoting. It's a spiral pivoting down. We play scales like this. Lots of wrist motions. This is part of good pianism. And Bach knew this too, even though he didn't have the modern day piano. He was still after the singing of a singer or a violinist or a woodwind player, or really any other instrument other than the keyboards he had, would be perfect legato. And we can make perfect legato on the modern day piano. And I think that's why Bach would have loved this modern day piano. And that's why I think it's great to play it on the modern day piano. Just do it stylistically correct. Don't have too many crescendos and diminuendos. Don't use too much pedal. And by all means, have your 3 voices, your 2 voices cleanly and well delineated. Bach would be thrilled, and you'll love it. Isn't that beautiful? Now let's put all the parts together. You only have those 10 minutes? Go right here, top of page 2. Work on these 4 measures, just like I did in the lesson now. And you'll have it in half of the time if you practice intelligently. You have your start point all laid out for you. You see the notes, you see the fingerings, so you can jump right to this. You don't have to fumble for it in the music. That's the start point. Now, one thing I just loved about this little thing, or that's counterpoint that came from measure 3 in the soprano, right here. As when the alto made its first entrance, and it made parallel 6 in measure 3. I don't know if I said that, but that's in there. But he's using it here. A minor. He's going to modulate. Now, I just wanted to, how I played this right now made me realize that the touch on this, I really like it kind of bubbly and percolating. I like it to have a certain amount of lively energy to it and still be cantabile. So my touch here in the left hand, this is strictly a suggestion. You can play this a number of ways. Glenn Gould probably would do everything like that. But I like it a little bit like this. Your touch. But because this is a different part in the piece, it's a little bit of musical contrast. Where for a little bit we don't have one of those big sequences. And we can just kind of linger with this beautiful floating duet of the upper voices. And be sure to hear this hear Bach. Of course, I exaggerated, but that's in there. And now, are you ready for sequence number 3? I am. I've been waiting. Well, emotionally, psychologically, there's always a culminating point in a piece for a performer. Rachmaninoff used to say it was the tochka, that there is one moment in the piece, and it's not always the loudest point. Sometimes it's the softest note in a piece. But there's always a point in the piece which is the defining moment. And for me, it is sequence number 3, right now. So, we're back home on G major. I'm going to take the bass first. Yes, just the bass part. Okay, it's a sequence. You could hear the repetition. Now I'm going to take the soprano. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A lot of syncopations here. And then let's put those two parts together, because these are the outer voices that form the counterpoint of that shared hand alto sequence built on part B. I'm saving that part for the third step because it's so hard. Let's get the easy ones first. Okay, so here we are, just the bass and soprano. Let's hear their dialogue and how they interact. Da 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 dum dum da 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 dum. One more time, a little faster. That's very beautiful, but when we put the alto now, we go. Here is the material we know. Right hand, left hand, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, left, right. Now I made a blow up from the color structural analysis. I put it on my printer, and I just couldn't believe this. Let's see, here we go. This now, I don't know if I should show this yet because there's still another ingredient I need to tell you first, and you're going to see it on here. So, but I'll just, whatever, I already started, so it's too late. We're going to show it. And maybe it's a good thing. Maybe I should do it in this order. But remember those parallel 6th and 3rds that we had that were so important? Here, Bach has done them back to back on beats 2 and 3, alternating between 10ths and 6ths, 10ths and 6ths, 10ths and 6ths, 10ths and 6ths. That's the miracle of this piece. That's why this is the defining section of the piece for me. And what I was going to show you also is this writing with the alto. Here it comes here, the subject. This is starting as a subject entry, just like they remember, because on this board right here, this is the chance for the alto to get the full subject and then the sequences that come immediately after it. So this is a true beginning for the alto here. I'll just put this back here. Okay, so we have that's altered right there. Instead of he alters. Okay, so now I'm going to play the. Yeah, I guess I'll leave this up here. There, I want to play the tenths. Oh yeah, this is what was so great. It's so complicated. I've been working pretty nonstop on this, really like 8-hour days for 2 weeks now. Just preparing this piece and these supplies. As I hone in on the lesson, it's a full immersion. It's like a language institute where you only speak that language for 6 hours a day, and that's what I do to make these charts and lessons. And it always amazes me what comes out of that intense introspective work, like looking under a microscope, and then all of a sudden something appears that was in front of my face the whole time, and I just then found it. And that's what happened with these tenths and sixths. I found them very recently, and they're such a huge part of the piece. So they start, I hope I'm not talking too much here. Just bear with me here, because this is complicated and I want to do it justice. The tenths are between the soprano and the alto, and the sixths are between the alto and the bass. And it splits that way. And that's part of this weaving around. The alto's the continuous one. So you got the soprano tenths, the bass sixth, soprano tenths, the bass. That's a good way to do it, just like that. See, they just undulate and go around. But the alto's not just doing this, it's doing this too with the hands. So both hands are doing, four things at once here. Okay, so I was just going to play this now slowly and see what it looks like with the hands, technically here. In this left hand here, here's another element was great. Listen to this fifth. Another fifth. Another fifth. And another fifth. And then he just takes it out. Now these fifths, I'm going to pull in on the music here closely and show you why they are so important to play and hear like that. Because the top note of that fifth here is the alto, and the bottom D here is the bass. But then there's another D that plays again, and it's for the alto. So these two Ds that we hear on beat 2 and the downbeat of beat 3. It took me a long time to find this element as well. So this one's held, that's the bass D with the quarter note. That second D with the fourth finger is the alto part. So we have bass and these two together. That's two voices. You could do it this way. That would be a good way to separate that one too. Anyway, know that that's two voices. The last thing I'll say on this wonderful sequence number 3 is the element of finger substitution, which I have not demonstrated yet. It's the only way that you can navigate the two voices of the soprano and the alto with one hand. So here we are. Now this fifth finger, I have to silently move my third finger to it without releasing the key, so I have fingers to get up here. Now I have to hang on to this soprano with the fourth finger while I reach down for the alto. 5, substitute to the 3, reach up. And here's one of those wrist tuck swings. And now I can see I'm hanging on to this. Substitute. Another wrist swing. And then substitute. Now that is beautifully played. Because everything is held exactly as it should be, and we can hear the dialogue. Let me do that one more time. You only have 10 minutes to practice. Just do this. Know what you're after. I'm going to learn the third sequence for the right hand. That's what I'm going to learn. And this is how you're going to start. This is alto. That's a 6. Substitute. Now the fingerings are 5, 4, 1, 4. Weird fingering. You have to do that. 1, 2, 1. Substitute. 3. Substitute. The bass now, the left hand. Sustain the bass quarter note, descending. So let me do one more time. Listen for this. Now hang on to this quarter note with the 5th finger. Hang on to the C. Hang on to the B. Hang on to the A. Isn't that gorgeous? Because now the bass is holding everything with that. And then you've got this weaving alto line, and then you have a beautiful soprano arcing, and then you have your beautiful tense 6, tense 6, tense 6, tense 6. Isn't that gorgeous? Hard to do at the end here. Our last subject entry of the soprano, which finishes the piece, measure 31. You have to hang on to this G. And then, that's one of the harder things here. Because if I did redistribution now between alto and soprano here, I would have this. G held. I have to do that here with that same compact hand position. So watch this, the last challenge here with my thumb. Now here I have to substitute the 4th finger on the G and hold it. faster now. That's a very subtle detail, but if you split it apart like that, your goal is so keep that in your ears. That's what you're trying to project here with how Bach has written that. So now do you appreciate what the extraordinary benefits of trying this piece and learning it, and what Bach was trying to teach? He was really after these very specific ideas of developing good musicianship, developing good technique, developing the ability to articulate these three voices so completely clearly and not lose any of the note values. You know, this is a tall order, and I think that's why the sinfonias aren't played that often. I find them very difficult. I find this harder than the partitas. But I loved working on it, and I'm just so excited to now have it in my repertoire, because these are friends. For me, the pieces that I learn and make this kind of commitment to, you're making a commitment to a piece of music. And so therefore, choosing your repertoire becomes extremely important. It's an investment of your life and your time. You'd say, I want to play that piece so badly, I'll do anything to play that piece. That's how I felt about most of the repertoire that I have played throughout my life. I've had this almost obsessive need to play the piece. I could not let go of it. It just had me. And until I got the thing learned, it would not give me any peace. But I'm sort of out there, just as the passion that I have for this is it's really my whole purpose for being and sharing this now in my later years. So my point is, choose the pieces wisely. If you're in your 20s now, put some great thought into what you want to learn, because the pieces you learn in your early years, from ages 1 to 10 and then 10 to 20, those are the most important years for learning as much repertoire as you possibly can, because those stay in the deep memory. And it's amazing, pieces I played when I was 12, I could get back in a week because it's in the deep, deep memory. I'm talking big pieces, Chopin Scherzo, Scriabin etudes, things like that. So anyway, when you pick your repertoire, you're going to have this lifelong friendship, and being able to go to this music, it's such a comfort. And they're your friends. I've said this before in lessons, and they don't leave you. They don't change their minds and decide they don't want to be your friend. You know, we part ways with people in life. That's just natural evolution of, decade to decade. We hang on to some friends and some we don't. But with the music, you hang on to it for your whole life. So I don't know what got into me today to talk so strongly about this. I think maybe with the world events going on now, we're in 2022 in the spring, and the world is really in a state of huge upheaval. And I watch helplessly with the daily events of the war going on, and there's nothing I can do about it, and my heart's just breaking. I think we all feel this way. We're in a really, we have these things in the human condition, and we also have music as the antidote and as the counterbalance. So we do have the greatness with the human condition. So all the more I am passionate and fervent about this. And that's why I'm speaking this way today, because I need this music a whole lot right now. So thank you so much for going on the journey with me, and putting Bach in your heart. The three words: wonder, glory, and genius. That's how I feel about Bach. So maybe give this one a try, and let me know how you like it, how it's coming along for you. I always love hearing from you. Thank you, and I Um, Hope this has been helpful. Thanks.